Undead. Let's get to Undead finally. Interesting. So what we can say right now is about Acolytes is Acolytes are the most harassable workers. They are the biggest reason, the way that Acolytes work are the biggest reason that Undead has a really tough time expanding. And everyone abuses their ziggurats and Acolytes since 2003. They now become 30 movement speed faster, still slower than heroes, but not as slow. This makes Acolytes better at scouting. They get across the map quicker. They are more able to escape from a Blade, a Farseer, an Archmage, a Death Knight, a Mountain... No one gets away from Mountain King. But they're more able to escape all these heroes. Or, when they don't escape, they make you invest more time into chasing them. So they get better at scouting. They get scouting info quicker in the early game as well. It may even make Mass Acolyte Rush valuable. No, just kidding. Viable. No, just kidding. 1 extra armor, 6% damage reduction is a pretty big deal as well. They get 10 bonus health, which is a pretty big deal. It's small enough, but you know, on a worker that gets killed all the time, this will matter, this one especially. And they get more regen on Blight, which makes them no better at scouting, this one. It makes them better at taking damage after scouting and then coming home. And it makes them a lot better against repeated harass. Archmage Water Elemental, Zeppelin Harass, Blizzard Harass, Flame Strike, the Angry Korea Man style Flame Strike, Farseer with Spirit Wolf and then Chain Lightning. They have more health, they have more armor, more regen. So if you cycle them around well, you are able to do this better now because they're faster and have more regen. And they're straight up better against damage. All of these I think are deserved and in the correct direction. It may make Undead expansions a little bit more viable. And it may make Undead less abused in their base all the time. What you can say about the Undead base is that no one wants to straight up attack the Undead base. Almost no one can all in it. The Undead base is said to be very scary defensively, but everybody want a piece of them Acolytes. And the first one probably remains true. Undead base is still very scary to attack into, but Acolytes now are a little bit less fragile. So as much as Undead has been one basing a lot, they can expand a little bit better and they're a little bit less harassable in their main. Of course, when we combine this with the nerfs that Human got to some of their stuff, despite the buffs to Flak Cannon and Flying Machine, you combine that with this, now Human cannot counterattack Acolytes as well. That worries me a little for Human. Human has a good matchup into Orc. Sometimes tough against Night Elf, but pretty balanced. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, depending on map. But they have a pretty bad matchup against Undead for the most part. And what's more, Undead Human matchup is very revolved around expanding, towering, and then tanks. And for the other one, it's Mass Destroyers or Cryptfi and Harass. So I do hope for more versatility in that matchup as well. And big crutch for Human was having really advanced harassment against Acolytes and Ziggurats and Goldmine. This makes that a little tougher, which proves even more that Undead will need to be able to be defeated by Human in some other way. So the big question of this patch will be, can Human play tier 2 1 base into tier 3 against Undead? Because if you can no longer harass and throw away footmen to kill Acolytes as easily, they need some power somewhere else in order to keep the status quo. Destroyers getting nerfed could be part of it. They do less bonus damage with their mana that they steal from themselves and opponents, and they have less health. It's still a pretty big health pool, but this does make a big difference. Destroyers are weaker in their maximum damage and less health. That helps Human. What's more is Destroyers gets used in every matchup. 90% of games against Orc, 98% of games against Human, maybe 80% plus against Night Elf as well. So this is one of the most core units to Undead, getting a significant health nerf and significant max damage nerf as well. But they don't get harassed as much. They may have a few hundred gold more in games where their Acolytes survive better. They may have better expansion capabilities. So let's see. Frostworm. Deserved. Correct direction, correct amount, I would say. Maybe 4 or 5 seconds would have been okay as well. But this was insane! It meant that if a Frostworm attacked a Demon Hunter, or an Archmage, or a Blade, they would get slowed. And it's a big slow. Those heroes could then, 1 second later, to stop the next attack, cast Potion of Lesser Invulnerability, which takes 7 seconds. And when they come out of it, they're still slowed. Yes way it's 10. Yes way it's 10. When you come out of Lesser Invulnerability, you're still slowed. To be slowed again. And nuked again. It's only the neutral potions of 12 second invulnerability that totally bridge the gap of slowness and give you a grace period of 2 seconds to walk with full movement speed. So I think we can agree that 10 was too much. But 3, it gives them chance to tag the same unit again, but not with a lot of maneuvering leeway. I feel like it's in the correct direction, but maybe overdone. 4 or 5 seconds might have been more fair. It's still 10 on units though. So, I think 3 to 6, 3 to 4, 3 to 5 seconds would have been reasonable. And they also get masked in team play, and it would make a big deal there too. Moving on. Necromancer is a meme unit. One of the most requested units on my stream for the requests. Shamans and Necromancers and Mountain Giants and Glaive Throwers are probably 4 of the weakest units in the game. And now, Necromancer. What are we getting? Should be buffs. And not small ones neither. 25 cheaper mana for Cripple. Is that the most expensive spell in the game? Cyclone is 175 as well or not? But Cyclone is way better than Cripple. Cripple reduces someone's movement speed and damage output. But Cyclone just puts them in the air. They can't do anything. But they can't take damage either. Cripple, you can still take damage. 175 was way too much. Yeah, Polymorph is like 220. Yeah. Possession is like more than 200 as well, right? 175 was way too much. It can still be stolen by Spellbreakers. A Purge or Disenchant would also remove it for half the price. Abolish removes it for 50. I think it's the correct direction, but too conservative. 125, 115, maybe 100 would have been fine as well. It is a very powerful tool, but only in a world where Dispel does not exist. Dispel does exist, so does Stealing. It is a 75% slow, 50% damage and attack speed reduction. It's huge. It's great on Chimeras, Worms, and Heroes. But the fact of the matter is, if you see opponent... Keep in mind, this is an RTS. This is not, hi, my name is Huevos. I make the 5 Chimeras. Good luck. See you in 10 minutes. No, it's an RTS. So, if you see someone going Temple of the Damned, you see someone going Necromancers, you're gonna get this spell. That means that Cripple is a tier 3 upgrade. So by that time, you will have this spell if you are worth your weight in dineros. So, Cripple will get countered by this spell. Makes 150 probably too expensive. I'd say 100 or 125 would be more fair. But there's more. Wait, there is more. Unholy Frenzy. Reduce drain. Okay, so Unholy Frenzy gives you 70% bonus attack speed, but drains you at 4 HPS. Now it's 3. Lich with Orb of Corruption and Unholy Frenzy and Worms and Crypt Fiends is pretty good. But they take damage, now a little bit less. Can't complain, correct direction, is it enough? It's a cheap spell, 50 mana, and it's unlocked at tier 2, not tier 3. That's a much smaller investment. I think this is good enough. For a spell that costs only 50 mana, you can't overdo things. So, good direction, I think the correct amount. You don't want it autocast, Zeorg, because it has a downside. You should not have autocast. You can also use Unholy Frenzy offensively to bring enemy units to lower health, even though you give them attack speed. And in that case it would be a nerf. But I would say 98% of the time it's a buff. You could say, give it autocast anyway, and then I will never use it, but you can use it. That's fair. I think making it more noob friendly is not a bad thing. RTS are challenging and scary enough. You guys watching now, playing or watching Warcraft 3, are certainly some of the best people in the world, right? But if more people can play it because Unholy Frenzy is autocast, why not? Yes, smiley face, chat says. No, but I think giving it autocast is fine. After reading that, it makes sense. Raise Dead. Increase base summon duration from 40 to 45 seconds. That's a good change. It makes them better at scouting. You can fight with them more often, more longer. So, good stuff. Correct direction. Is it the correct amount? Usually it won't even make a difference in fight, but they are better at scouting. Let's say you make one Necromancer, and then you make some Skellies, and they can scout better. That's nice. Obsidian Statue, less health. I don't think this is good. Statues are a staple unit for Undead. Not only because they're very good, but also because they are their healing. Undead does not get Clarity Potion. And, yeah, they don't have Clarity Potion. And Death Knight is the reason that Undead has movement speed, health regen, and coil. Without Death Knight, there is no healing outside of Statue. So if you ever want to stimulate other hero picks than Death Knight, nerfing statues is not the way to go. A Dreadlord Lich first second hero combo needs statues even more than Death Knight. And without the Death Knight, Obsidian Statues, being mechanical, have no natural regeneration. With Unholy Aura, even though Unholy Aura says it improves the regeneration of units, it actually takes mechanical Obsidian Statues and meat wagons and takes them from 0% regen to some regen. So you get some bonus health on statues. And because they're faster, they can escape danger more easily. For those reasons, and for how crucial the statue is to Undead, I don't think their health should have been buffed at all. Nerfed at all. I think wrong direction. Skeletal Warrior. This is big. Not only does this indirectly buff Necromancers and raise the dead from the skeleton of the Necro, but this also directly affects Rod of Necromancy. What it doesn't affect though is Dark Ranger and Black Arrow. Black Arrow creates dark minions, not Skeletal Warriors, even though they both lack skin and have a revealed ribcage. But this does affect Rod of Necromancy. And Rod of Necromancy is very necessary and very strong. It is 150 gold for 4 charges of double skeleton. 8 skeletons for 150 gold. Comes out at tier 1. Bolsters your army, your harassing and your scouting capabilities. And Rod of Necromancy should never be nerfed either, right? Even though it's extremely powerful, the entire racial balance is around the existence of it. If ever Rod of Necromancy would get nerfed, something else would have to get buffed in order to keep Undead in balance. This also affects Book of the Dead, by the way. 10%, 10 health more. What is it, like 6% health? Is a big deal. For harass against human, makes Undead a little bit better at harass against human. When you combine that with stronger Acolytes and weaker defend upgrade, I'm even more worried for Undead human matchup because of this. Rather, I would have liked to see a similar buff to Necromancers that Shamans enjoyed. A little bit of health and a little bit of damage. Skeletal Mage, also 10 HP. Haunted Goldmine, a smaller blight radius. Wow, that's really, really interesting and can be said to be a buff and a nerf. A smaller blight radius means you can no longer... you can't build ziggurats at the edge anymore, but no one did that. You don't get healing as far away from the from the undead base anymore. As an undead, if I use Crypt Fiends to defend away from my gold mine, my expansion, I don't get extra healing at the edge where there's no blight. Though I can create extra blight with Skull, which is cheap. But a big deal is that now undead expansions are easier to hide. They stand out like a sore point on the minimap. Oftentimes, the enemy is not even trying to find undead expansions because they're so rare. But they look at the map and suddenly they see like, hey, those two trees are blighted. There must be an expansion here. Let's send one footman and invalidate it. Let's send Blade Master and kill all the Acolytes in 5 seconds. That's a big buff. And I will say that this highlighted change here is a bigger buff than it is a nerf. That's... If I could choose to expand with Undead without any blight at all, I would do it half the time. Even though it means I can build no buildings until I bring a skull, just so it doesn't get found. And they're also cheaper in lumber, 15 lumber. Undead expansions are also difficult to defend because weak Acolytes, slow Acolytes, slow, exposed and weak Acolytes. The blight stands out like a sore thumb on the map. And it's expensive because you need a gold mine for mining and a necropolis for remaking Acolytes if you ever lose. Otherwise they have to go from your main. And a necropolis to TP towards it to defend it. Every other race is allowed to TP to Tree of Life, Great Hall and Town Hall to defend their expansion. And every other race can remake their worker, but not Undead. Undead must make a necropolis of... how much is it? 200 gold, 205. And a mine for another 255 gold and 225 lumber or something. And now they're a bit cheaper in gold and lumber. So, altogether good changes. Maybe the gold mine is still too expensive. I don't know. Might be. But maybe it's okay. Good changes. I need some more water. Necropolis has also been made cheaper by 30 gold. 255. And 10 seconds quicker. That's a big deal as well. Now let me tell you something about Necropolis. There are 3 ways, there are 3 reasons an undead in the meta makes Necropolis. 1. You're expanding and you want to be able to TP and retrain Acolytes. 2. You make a Necropolis instead of a ziggurat for the 10 food that it offers. That can be in your main and it can be somewhere on the map. It becomes a surrogate scout. It gives you the 10 food that a ziggurat would as well. It costs 100 gold more than a ziggurat, but 0 lumber, making it 50 less lumber than a ziggurat. The net resources that the Necropolis cost is 50 more than a ziggurat, but it's all within the gold department, none in lumber. Less lumber is the biggest bottleneck early game for tech speed. You are now able to use more ghoul scouting and harass, and you can then, the extra lumber that you lose from it can now be put into, I say that wrong. The lumber you lose from that, opportunity cost of using ghouls for mining instead, can now be put towards a necropolis instead of a ziggurat. They build faster, making that an even more viable play. And it's cheaper, making the extra resources that a necropolis costs even more negligible compared to a ziggurat. And the third reason you make a necropolis, first was expansion, second is to replace a ziggurat. The third reason is replacing your Hall of the Dead, which died, to Bat Riders, Raiders or Steam Tanks. This one as well is cheaper and builds quicker. Cool. Ooh, big one. First, I need some more water. Hold on for a moment. Okay. Ziggurat gets instantly blown up by goblin sappers right now. Any race can do that against undead. They themselves, orc, human, night elf. But I feel like human and orc do it the most. Maybe night elf too. It's not very fun. It's very easy for the attacker and it's difficult to stop. Now ziggurats will survive sappers. And although they only take 1 or 2 extra hits to take down ziggurats, that's still 1 or 2 hits that allows you to respond. If you insta 5 Acolyte repair a sappered ziggurat, you can survive it from the brink. Oh yeah, it's very fun to blow up ziggurats with sappers, I agree. But it's not very fair. And it's not very interactive. This does potentially make Tower Rush more effective for Undead. Undead does few Tower Rushes. They can Tower Rush an Orc with Lich Tower Rush, Lich first. This happens on small maps very rarely. It was meta tactic for a bit by 1 or 2 players. Beat most Orcs of the scene, most pro Orcs. Except yours truly. And then also it can be used to buffer like a Crypt Fiend attack against Night Elf maybe, but probably not because they'll kill you before it comes up, I guess. I guess human, we don't really see it. And altogether it doesn't get used that much for Tower Rush. But it also once again emboldens fast expansion and mid-tier expansions a bit because ziggurats are stronger, so it's easier to get some defenses with Spirit Towers up. Economically, Undead gains much. 1, 2, 3, and also Acolytes is 4. So whatever matchup Undead was weak in, even if Destroyers and Statues get nerfed, and even if Necros don't get used, these 4 economic changes means that Undead over the whole, statistically, maybe not in every game, but statistically is a little bit better off economically. Orb of Corruption is the linchpin of Undead race to maximize focus fire damage, and a 1 armor reduction is a really big deal. It is a nerf, it doesn't do as much debuff. It was very strong. Sometimes Orb of Corruption is the best orb, sometimes Lightning Orb is the best orb. It depends on the matchup, the army size, the situation. Both Lightning and Corruption are incredibly powerful, and I think Corruption being nerfed is fair if it is compensated by plenty of other changes so that there's less power in corruption but more power in other things. That creates more diversity. For example, maybe Undead doesn't always have to go to tier 3 to get Orb of Corruption. Maybe sometimes they will linger a bit at tier 2, just like the other races can and do. They maybe get some Necromancers out before going to tier 3 with Orb. You say Kappa Mongol, but so still though, I still think Orb of Corruption is key, even despite it. I'm just saying, if this makes a change, that's how it would be. But it's still very good, and it's just a nerf. Now, Undead. With most of the changes that we've seen so far, we can see that Undead has improved at least against human, except for the Flying Machine and the Destroyer change. And now that we see the Destroyer change and as well as Orb of Corruption, maybe human has more of a fighting chance against Undead after all. Maybe Rifleman Caster isn't as bad anymore because destroyers are easier to focus down. Because Orb of Corruption doesn't deal as much damage. This one no longer needs a graveyard. And you can get them more often. Ghoul and Abominations get more burst heal on their Cannibalize. It goes quicker. I believe this is relatively the same. So you get the same heal. 33... 330... What's... Oh, 320. Oh, you get 10 health less, right? But you get it much quicker. 10 health less. Ah, no! Abomination, also much quicker healing. Cool. Buffs to Cannibalize, which doesn't get used a lot. But that's interesting. Cannibalize is already a tier 2 upgrade. That's very quick healing. This may make ghouls more possible to be used more frequently again. Most matchups have evolved to fast tech Undead with Crypt Fiend, and ghouls don't really get used all that much anymore in any matchup for any period of time, despite a very strong Ghoul Frenzy tier 3 upgrade. And that's because most hero spells, like Acid Bomb, which by the way I feel like should have been nerfed, and it did not get nerfed. Healing Spray got nerfed, but not Acid Bomb. Ghouls get invalidated due to Acid Bomb and Fire Breath nerfs. Ghouls get invalidated because of Acid Bomb, Fire Breath, Shockwave, War Stomp, Spiked Barricades, and whether or not they could heal up with Cannibalize wasn't as big of a deal, so I'm not sure this is going to change much. I'll say it's in the correct direction because almost no one uses it, so buffs are always welcome. But I'm not sure it's going to shake up the meta. I think that's fair to say. What is true is what Witty said is this requires skillful micro and multitasking, and it is rewarding people that are able to do that, which is always nice in an RTS. When you can handle more, you will do more. And one really big deal is that Cannibalize getting better empowers non-Death Knight first hero choices. I'm not sure we're going to see that at all. But Dreadlord and Lich and Cryptlord are way more possible now to open. Because it's not so gosh darn hard to heal ghouls with Cannibalize as it used to be. Healing quicker means you can start creeping quicker and you can start refighting again quicker. And it's also better for Abominations. Nowadays, when you use Abomination, you do Coil on Abom even in your own base. Because you see, it has 400 life. I know I need to use my level 3 Coil. I'll just buy a mana potion and I'm not gonna bother waiting for Cannibalize. So, that much more healing makes Aboms able to take care of themselves. The big boys now. They always were. But the big boys now. So, good changes. Devour Magic no longer kills enemy Skeletal Warriors in Undead Mirror. They definitely don't kill Skeletal Mages. They don't kill Feral Spirits level 1 at all anymore. They didn't. 250, 180. Now it's 250, 160. Less damage. So generally disempowering Devour Magic against all the things that they got used against, like Feral Spirit, Water Elemental, Skeletons, I guess. Destroyer nerf. Now with Abominations seeing little play, Ghouls seeing little play, Necromancers and Banshees seeing little play, and Destroyers being prevalent in every matchup, I think it's fair to disempower Destroyers a little bit and buff other things like Necromancer. But I'm not sure Undead got enough back in return because I'm not sure, really simply just not sure, how good Necros are now. They may not be good enough. I was hoping for stat buffs for Necro, but that needs testing. Disease Cloud. Whoa, okay. 2 damage, double the DPS. So Disease Cloud is an ability that goes on Abomination and on Meat Wagons. This is nuts. it was already quite strong against dryads and not bad against bears. This is nuts. So 2 damage per second over 90 means 180 damage. Dryads have 0 natural healing. Dryads have 0... Oh, only Abo, not Wagon? Oh, okay. Only for Abo. Oh. Okay. Anyway, Dryads have 0 natural healing. Yeah, I see this, the parentheses, but do meat wagons still stink? Do they stink half as bad? They just stink half as bad? Huh. Okay, 180 damage over 90 seconds instead of 120 over 1. Yeah, 120 damage over 120 seconds. Big buffs. Exhume Corpse is a meat wagon ability that allows meat wagons to self-supply over time with ghouls, corpses. That has 2 applications. You can either animate dead it with the Death Knight, or you can raise the dead with skeletons. When you raise the dead, you don't care what corpse it is. But when you animate dead with the level 6 from DK, he gets 6 Crypt Fiends instead of 6 ghouls. This is a big deal and a big buff, as Crypt Fiends are infinitely more useful than ghouls. Animate Dead gives you 6 invincible, undispellable, undebuffable units for 30 seconds. It's like Warden's Avatar of Vengeance little spirits. 6 Crypt Fiends is a big deal. It is a very strange and convoluted buff, but it makes Animate Dead better in the most rare of circumstances. To this I say, why not? I don't know if it's worth your man hours to have written the tooltip, because it will probably never happen, but it will happen sometimes, and you can play around for it. So if you get Animate Dead, you could make 1 wagon and 1 upgrade, and you could prepare for the heroic, the ultimate of a lifetime. It will happen someday, and when it does, we'll remember this day, July the 6th of 2018. I can already see the request coming next weekend, or this Sunday. Frenzy, doesn't matter. Skeletal Longevity is the 2575 upgrade that is very short on research time, that improves the duration of skeletons. Skeletons are now 45 instead of 40. This gives them another 20, putting them at 65 seconds instead of the old 55. A total 10-second buff after you factor in both buffs together. But the gold is now 50-75. 75-75. It was 50-75. 25 gold more, 5 seconds more. It's a buff. You need to get this if you go mass necros. But if you get 1 or 2 necros, you don't need to get this. And it's buffed either way on the baseline as well. Okay. Oh, wow. That is huge. So now we have a case for making Necromancers without tier 3. Because Cripple is the worst. Raised Skeletons and Unholy Frenzy are the best. Upgrades for Necro. Cripple is good, but it's too expensive. So generally you don't want Master Skeletons. The only reason you go tier 3 is for Skeletal Mastery. And then you might as well get the Master upgrade for Necros as well while you're at it. So, now at tier 2 gives Undead a very alternative, compelling method of countering air. Mass Wyverns, Griffins, Dragonhawk, Flying Machine. Night Elf doesn't really go air against Undead until late game with Hippogriff. You now have Skeletal Mastery to defend against air. You don't have to rely on Gargs or Crypt Fiends with web anymore. Not per se. Or spells. That's a big deal. Furthermore, Skeletal Mastery much empowers tier 2 tactics. This is such a huge deal. What it would mean though is that if you do a Meat Wagon Skeletal Mastery push against, let's say, a human or an orc, you no longer have the benefit of Orb of Corruption if you stay at tier 2. Keep in mind though that you can get this early and still go to through to tier 3 with little to no delay if you want to. So it's not like you can't get Orb of Corruption, it's just you can also get this earlier and you can delay it a bit, or don't go at all.